Market power of a firm can be defined as the ability of the firm to raise price without losing all its sales. Thus, a potential market power exists wherever a firm or a group of firms is in a sufficiently dominant position in a market to be able to exert a significant influence on the terms of sale of the goods or services. Here it becomes necessary to understand that the firm that faces downward sloping demand has market power. Usually, a high rate of return on capital is an indicator of the use of market power. If demand and cost condition permit, market power gives firm ability to raise price above average cost and earn economic profit. That is why it becomes necessary for the students of management studies to understand the process of managerial decisions for firms under market power. The main determinant of the market power are economics of scale and barriers created by government. In economic sense, market power lies with those who can alter the price of a good or service. A firm with market power can increase or decrease their prices without losing their customers to others. Here it has to be remembered that before a firm begins to compete in a market and gain market power, it has to enter the market. Many markets have impediments such as license, patents and copyrights that make it difficult for firms to enter. On one side, these barriers are quite instrumental in reducing or limiting competition in the market. On the other, these barriers prove to be an important source of market power to those who clear these barriers. Slide 3. Monopoly is the form of market in which only one firm is the sole producer or seller of the product, which has no close substitutes. Thus we can say that the main condition necessary for monopoly are that one and only one firm produces and sells a particular commodity or a service. There are no rivals or direct competitors of the firm. No other seller can enter the market for whatever reasons, legal, technical or economic. And monopolist is a price maker. He tries to take the best of whatever demand and cost conditions exist without the fear of new firms entering to compete away his profits. In order to maximize profit, the monopolist will produce where MC is equal to MR. This gives an output of OQ and the price of OP as shown in the figure, where a vertical line from quantity axis meets the AR curve. At this price and output combination, the monopolist earns supernormal profit of PRSE. Under perfect competition, the supernormal profit would be temporary. In the long run, new firms would be attracted into the industry and the short-run supernormal profits would be competed away. However, under monopoly, there are barriers which prevent new firms from entering the industry, and a single firm remains the only supplier. Supernormal profits are therefore a feature of both short-run and long-run equilibrium under monopoly. The existence of long-run supernormal profit implies considerable power in the marketplace. However, the monopolist does not have complete market power. A firm with a pure monopoly has complete control over supply, but it cannot control demand. In the short run, the monopolist maximizes his short-run profits or minimizes his short-run losses. Essentially, if the two conditions are satisfied, which are MC is equal to MR and the slope of MC is greater than the slope of MR at the point of their interaction. In the short run, a monopolist has to work with a given existing plant. He can expand or contract output by varying the amount of variable factors, but working with a given existing plant. Maximization of profit in the short run requires the fixation of output at a level at which marginal cost with a given existing plant is equal to the marginal revenue. In the long run, the monopolist has time to expand his plants or to intensively use his existing plant, which will maximize his profit. Since there will be no new entry, it is not necessary for the monopolist to reach an optimal scale. It means that monopolist will not stay in the business if he makes losses in the long run. The size of a plant and degree of utilization of any given plant size depends entirely on market demand. He may reach the minimum point of LAC or remain at falling point of his LAC and expand beyond the minimum LAC, depending on the market conditions. A seller indulges in price discrimination when he sells the same product at different price to different buyers. Price discrimination is personal when different prices are charged from different persons, and local when different prices are charged from people living in different localities. and according to use when, for example, higher rates are charged for commercial use of electricity as compared to domestic use. Price discrimination is possible when the seller is able to distinguish individual units bought by single buyer or to separate buyers into classes where resale among classes is not possible. To measure the amount of monopoly power possessed by a firm, economists often use Lerner index, which can be calculated by the formula P minus MC whole upon P, where P is the firm's price and MC is its marginal cost. This index varies from 0 and 1. The higher the L is, the higher the degree of monopoly power is. Monopolistic competition is a form of market structure in which a large number of independent firms are supplying products that are slightly differentiated from the point of view of buyers. Thus, the product of competing firms are close but not perfect substitutes because buyers do not regard them as identical. This situation arises when the same commodity is being sold under different brand names, each brand being slightly different from the others. For example, Lux, Liril, Rexona, Hammam, etc. are brands of toilet soap. Each firm is therefore the sole producer of a particular brand of product. It is a monopolist as far as that particular brand is concerned. However, since the various brands are close substitute, a large number of monopoly producers of these brands are involved in keen competition with one another. The differentiation among competing products or brands may be based on real or imaginary. Real differences among brands refer to palpable difference in quality such as shape, flavor, color, packaging, after-sale service, warranty period, etc. In contrast, imaginary difference means quality difference which are not really palpable, but buyers are made to imagine or are conditioned to believe that such differences exist and are important. Advertising often has the effect of making buyers imagine or believe that the advertised brand has different qualities. When there is a product differentiation, each firm has some degree of control over price. In addition to product differentiation, the other three basic characteristics of monopolistic competition are: number 1, there are a large number of independent sellers and buyers in the market. The relative proportionate market share of all sellers are insignificant and more or less equal. That is, seller concentration in the market is almost non-existent. There are neither any legal nor any economic barriers against the entry of new firms into the market. New firms are free to enter the market and existing firms are free to leave the market. In other words, product differentiation is the only characteristic that distinguishes monopolistic competition from perfect competition. To understand the short-run equilibrium, let us take a short-run profit case. This profit can be expected to attract new suppliers into the market. The effect of this is to reduce the demand for the output of the existing firm in the industry and to increase the price sensitivity of their product. The market demand is shared out amongst a large number of suppliers competing keenly on price. Assuming no impediments to the competitive process, new entry will continue until all the pure profit is competed away. The effect is shown in the figure here. The demand curve, which is also AR curve, has shifted inwards and become more elastic until it is tangible at the profit maximizing output to the long run average cost curve. Similarly, in case of loss consequent upon the exit of a firm, the adjustment will bring back zero loss position, that is, normal profit in the long run. The long run group cases of monopolistic and perfect competition may be compared and contrasted easily. It may be noted that price under monopolistic competition is always higher than the price under perfect competition. The scale of output under monopolistic competition is always smaller than the scale of output under perfect competition. Equilibrium under monopolistic competition is with excess capacity, whereas the perfectly competitive equilibrium is without excess capacity, and that there is a deadweight loss under monopolistic competition, whereas this loss is non-existent under perfect competition. Oligopoly can be defined as market dominated by a small number of participants who are able to collectively exert control over supply and market prices. An oligopolist faces a downward sloping demand curve, but the elasticity may depend on the reaction of rival to changes in price and output. Assuming that firms are attempting to maintain a high level of profit and their market share, It may be the case that rivals will not follow a price increase by one firm. Therefore, demand will be relatively elastic, and a rise in price would follow to a fall in the total revenue of the firm. Or the rivals are likely to match a price fall by one firm to avoid a loss of market share. If this happens, demand will be more inelastic and a fall in price will also lead to a fall in total revenue. The kink in the demand curve means that there is a discontinuity in the firm's marginal revenue curve. There are two versions of the kinked demand curve. One is called the Sweezy version and the other is called the Hall and Hitch version. According to Sweezy, the most distinguishing feature of oligopoly is that an individual firm does not know and cannot determine the exact nature of its actual demand curve because of the uncertainty and indeterminacy of rivals' reaction to its own action. An oligopolistic firm is therefore guided in its decisions by imagined demand curve, which is based on what it expects to be most likely reaction of its rivals. In contrast, the Hall and Hitch version rejects the marginalist approach of profit maximization. It argues that under oligopoly, firms aim at fair profit and follow the full cost principle in determining price.